Hello everyone, this is Banter Bill. Welcome to Arah, Path 3 Dungeon Guide. This is not a speedrunning guide, but a guide meant for those who are new to the dungeon, or for those who need a refresher. In terms of class composition, I recommend that you bring the class which you can survive the best in. Guardians are very useful as they have a lot of blocks and reflects. A Mesmer is also useful as they have a reflect as well, and there is a trick later on in the dungeon where you can beat one of the bosses very quickly with a Mesmer. And Thieves can also be useful as they can stealth groups past some of the skip parts. So starting off, we're just going to stack here and pull the trash mobs to us. We just had one of our group members bring all the mobs back here. If you're going to use potions, and I recommend you use every advantage you can get, you want to bring undead slaying potions, as all the mobs in this dungeon are undead. And so we're just going to continue to stack at this gate until we kill all the trash mobs. Once we kill those guys, we're just going to keep going and keep killing trash mobs until we get to the first boss. Alright, we're going to pull these trash mobs right in front of the first boss as well. Now, as a general note, I recommend throwing down your reflects as often as you can. Some mobs don't have projectiles, but they often do. And as you can see there, I did massive damage with my reflects, and the Guardians did massive damage with theirs. Now we're on to fight the first boss. We're going to stack back here, and our Guardian tried to pull the legendary boss to us. He unfortunately was not successful at doing that, so we killed this guy first. However, when we eventually do pull the legendary boss, his gimmick is that he'll revive this hunter every time we kill him. So we first think, well, maybe we should just go in and kill the legendary so he can't revive the hunter. But we didn't do that, we just pulled the legendary to us. Then we decide, well, let's kill the hunter first. But then when we killed the hunter first, the legendary just revived him. So then we finally figured out, okay, let's just kill the legendary first, and we'll throw up our reflects as often as we can to avoid getting hit by the hunter. And then we go ahead and do that. I think it is possible to pull the legendary by himself without the hunter, so you don't need to bother with both at once. However, we did both at once and we were perfectly fine. And if you just stack in melee, throw down your condition removals when you can, and have your guardians throw up all their boons, you should be fine. Alright. Then we're going to stack to pull some more trash mobs. And again, the Guardians and myself are going to throw up our reflects when they're off cooldown. And I try to time it so I put my feedback when the Guardian wall of reflection ends. So we stick to the left-hand wall to avoid aggroing this next group of mobs. Now we're going to jump on this tree to go around a lot of these mobs. If you have a thief, you can probably just stealth past this. And I have a lot of trouble getting up this tree, so if you do have trouble, it may just be better to skip all the trash mobs there. We do end up pulling some trash mobs, so we quickly take those guys out. And then I tried to get up the tree, and I'm the last one to get up the tree. So it is somewhat difficult. I think I sped this up 8 times, so it took me a full minute of jumping and jumping and jumping just to try to get up this tree. And here's the attempt where I finally do it. You want to jump forward without hitting the right-hand wall. And then once you get up to the top, you're going to go up one more level to the left. Now the whole point of this is not to get out of combat. It's really just to skip a whole bunch of mobs. So if you don't want to do this or you think it's too tough, or if you have a thief, even better, you can just stealth past these guys or run past these guys. Now, Arah has a lot of skipping in it, and if you don't like skipping, then I don't recommend Arah. Part of the challenge of this dungeon is running through a bunch of these mobs with your party intact and not dying. So, I think skipping is actually part of this dungeon and part of the challenge and thrill of this dungeon. So I don't think that it's a bad dungeon because there's a lot of skipping, or that skipping is a cheap strategy. Because, as you can see, you can go down when you skip these mobs. So you do have to be careful, you do have to stay tightly packed, use your invisibility when you need to, use your blocks, and actually use some degree of skill to make it across. Now we stack up on this rock to get out of combat. You can actually range the boss from up there and be safe the entire time. We fight in melee because it'll be faster, and this boss is really easy. I don't think I even got hurt during this fight. And I'm staying in these red AoE rings. I'm not even totally sure what they do. So I just threw up my reflex and my focus wall every time I could, and I took no damage in melee the entire time. So that could have been due to the fact that I had 3 guardians and I'm a full Zerker gear, so I don't bring a lot of aggro. But this boss is really easy in melee, so you don't even have to do the range trick up on the rock. Then once you kill the boss, wait for the cutscene to end to pick up your chest. We kill these hands while we're waiting. One of our group members was AFK for a bit, and the chest will spawn after the cutscene. Alright, and then we're going to do some more skipping. On this underwater part, you just want to keep going forward and avoid getting hit by the bubbles. I find if you stay close to the bottom, you should remain relatively safe. Then we killed these gorillas because we're about to play a game of hot potato. So walking down this hallway, the goal is to bring this light that you see on the side from one beacon to the next. Now our first guardian solos the first leg of the race. He just brings it to the next light all by himself. The second leg, however, you'll need to throw the light to your teammates because it'll constantly hurt you. Now, if you have a mesmer, you could portal halfway across. We tried that the first time, but our timing wasn't that great, so we tried this time without using portal, and we're successful. In fact, 2 people carry this thing almost the entire time, because they just pass it back to each other and then heal up in the meantime when they're not holding it. I would just make sure that you pass the ball when you have time to spare, otherwise you could go down, and the animation does take a little bit of time. And then if you're walking with the guy, just heal him and throw up some swiftness because he's going to need it. Then once you get to the end, the gate will open. Then we're on to fight Lupicus. To get to Lupi, stick to the left-hand wall to avoid aggroing these trash mobs. There'll be these hands pointing out to shoot projectiles. Any type of feedback will basically devastate these turret towers. So I throw up my feedback on the first one, the Guardian throws up his wall of reflection, and I throw up my temporal curtain, and they just go down. If you don't have reflex, then you're probably having a hard time anyway. But you probably should take down these turrets even if you don't have reflect. But I recommend bringing at least someone who has a reflect in this dungeon. Then we're going to stack in the left-hand corner to pull these gorillas to us, and then kill these gorillas. Are these gorillas? They look like more like abominations to me. And we'll just quickly DPS down these gorillas. The only thing to really watch out for is that initial charge attack, because that does do a lot of damage if it hits you. Then we're on to fight Lupi. Lupi is the same in all 4 paths of this dungeon, so if you've done another path, he is exactly the same. So Lupi consists of 3 stages. In the first stage, if you're doing it like a casual group would, you're going to range Lupi. Now, he'll have an attack where he'll spawn a grub on someone. You want to kill these grubs ASAP. It's even better though if you can dodge the attack in the first instance. The dodge looks like that, where I just dodge. He'll do a hand flourish up in the air, and you want to dodge like when he's a quarter of the way through the animation. Then that'll keep the grubs from spawning on you at all. Unfortunately, he puts the attack on a random teammate, so you're not sure who it's going to be on, so the whole team should dodge and then re-stack up in case someone missed, like I missed there, to kill the grubs that spawn out if you fail to dodge. Now, if you don't kill a grub, it'll buff Lupi, giving him more health and attack, so you want to kill these grubs. So try to dodge the attack, and if you can't dodge the attack, kill the grubs. I recommend one person be in charge of killing grubs the entire time, and the other 4 range Lupi and then kill grubs in the off time. So now we're on to stage 2. In stage 2, he'll start warping the people and throwing up a bunch of AoEs. Now, you do not want to get hit by these AoEs. They do about half of my health. Granted, I'm in full Zerker, so I have pretty light armor, but it's still massive damage. When he does the teleporting thing attack to you, you just want to dodge out of the way when he's really close, then you won't get hit by the attack. Other than that, he's relatively straightforward. If you're going to do a feedback trick, this is complicated and you need to have a Mesmer with good timing. But at the end of phase 1, everyone should charge to stack and Loopy in melee range, and then when he's about to use his range attack, a Mesmer will throw up feedback. Now, the range attack originates from the top of his model. Since everyone's inside him, it'll go down to the feedback and reflect back at him. And the reflect uses Loopy's base power, which is tons of damage. So you will do a lot of damage if you can manage to pull off the feedback trick. But again, it takes a lot of coordination on the Mesmer, and the entire group needs to be in melee range. So now we're in phase 3. In phase 3, he'll throw up this arena trap, which you need stability or a warp to break out of, and he'll do a AoE attack, which you do not want to be in range of while he's doing it. It'll basically drain your health. So here's an example. I got trapped in the arena, and I blink out quickly. So I'm able to blink out because I'm a Mesmer. If you're not a Mesmer, you need to use stability to get out, otherwise you'll probably die. So bring stability on your utility bar for this fight, because you'll need it to get out of that arena trap if he does use it on you. Now, I recommend in general in this fight, if you're doing it casually, to fight along the edges. That way, if you do die, the group can lure Loopy to the opposite side of the arena, and then then the rest of the group can revive you. If you die in the middle of the arena, the revivers will be susceptible to Loopy's attacks. So I recommend just staying on the edge the entire time, and that's what I did. And I didn't die, but if you do die, it's much easier to revive you. Right, then once you beat Loopy, we're actually almost done with this path. We're going to skip this next part. I throw up my mass invisibility. The Guardians are throwing up retreat to help our teammates across. Those spiders up there can do a lot of damage. Thankfully, I'm in the back half of our group, so they're chasing the front half, and I don't have to worry about them. But they can do a lot of damage if they catch up to you. In fact, that cutscene basically downed one of our Guardians because he was turned around at the end of the cutscene. Once you make it through, you just want to stick on the right-hand side, trying to avoid these giants. Our warrior got caught in one of the giants because he was chilled. I tried to save him by placing a null field on him to remove his conditions, but unfortunately I was not successful. So just run around the edge, and we are going up to fight the final boss. Alright, for the final boss, you want 1 or 2 people kiting all the mobs, and the other 3 to stay in these AoE circles. The 3 that stay in the AoE circles should not attack. Just stay in the AoE circles and survive. As long as the 3 people are in the 3 AoE circles, the ritual progress should go up, and that'll bring you to the next stage. So again, just, if you're like me, I'm doing nothing basically. I'm just staying in my AoE circle, avoiding attacking and avoiding taking damage, and just waiting for the next stage of this fight. I was actually surprised how easy this was. If you kite correctly, the 2 guys are trying to keep him in the middle, and if you have the 3 people staying in the circles. For the next phase of the boss, you just want to fight in melee on the boss. And we do that, and he's relatively straightforward. He pops down some conditions, but other than that, he's not too bad. I'm not actually sure if he uses projectile attacks. I always throw up feedback just in case, because even if he doesn't reflect anything, it's a combo field. But I'm not entirely sure if he throws down projectiles. But we just stay in melee range, and this is easy. After Loopy, this boss should be no problem. Alright, and then once you beat that boss, you are done with the dungeon. Now, if you want more loot, you can do some giant slaying bonus rounds, and that's what we decided to do. I'll leave you guys to the frog boss music and Super Adventure Box. Thanks for watching.